Once World War I ended, those living in urban America had spare cash and spare time. When they weren't watching movies or dancing the Charleston,
Yes, to dance the Charleston.
they were in large arenas or in front of their TVs, watching or playing sports. The most popular sport at the time was baseball. Everyone played baseball, even those living in rural areas. The sport was called the national pastime, and the king was Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was a colorful man who had hit more home runs than anyone in the league. Considered a national hero, Babe Ruth was looked up to by many and was crowned the king of baseball by his fans. One of Babe Ruth's most famous quotes was, "Every strike brings me closer to another home run." Another popular sport at the time was boxing.
The 70,000 spectators pack around the ring in the blistering sunshine. The championship belt of gold and silk is paraded for all to see, symbol of every heavyweight king from John L. to Willard himself. Gloves have been brought out now and fitted to their big-boned hands.
Nicknamed Kid Blackie and the Manasseh Mauler, Jack Dempsey was the heavyweight champion from 1914 to 1927. Many of his fights set financial and attendance records in the boxing scene.
Jack Dempsey. These are the first motion pictures ever made of the most ferocious battler the ring has known. Hard, handsome, with whipcord muscles, Dempsey trained fiercely. A few short years before, he had been a tramp, nothing more than a hobo, roving the tough towns of the West. It was difficult keeping him in sparring partners, for he ripped into them without mercy, using the bobbing, weaving style with which he cut down Willard in a one-sided slaughter to become heavyweight champion of the world.
Another popular sport of the time was tennis.
Masculine women, feminine men, which is the rooster, which is the hen? It's hard to tell them apart today, and say, sister is busy learning to shave, brother just loves his feminine way.
Both men and women played the sport competitively, and many came out to watch.
When I was a tot, now we don't know who is who or we but what's what.
In the women's division, Helen Wills held the top spot for a total of 9 years.
Women and feminine men.
Helen Wills was the first woman athlete to become a global celebrity. She was admired for her graceful physique and for her fluid motion. One of her most famous quotes was, "When I play, I become entirely absorbed in the game. It may be a form of concentration." In the men's division, Bill Tilden was the #1 tennis player for 6 years. Bill Tilden is often considered to be one of the greatest tennis players of all time. He was the first American to win Wimbledon in 1920 and has won 7 U.S. championship titles.
Finale dei 100 metri, stile libero, uomini.
Swimming was another popular sport in the 1920s. The sport was the most popular during the Olympics. He won 3 gold medals at the 1920 Olympic Games in Belgium. Norman Ross set 13 world records and won 18 U.S. championships during his career. Later in his life, Norman Ross became a radio host in Chicago known as Uncle Normie. Ethelita Bleibtreu was the best female swimmer in the 1920s. Known as the Babe Ruth of swimming, Ethelita won all 3 women's events in record time in the 1920s Olympics. There was an extraordinary increase in the popularity of golf in the 1920s. In the past, golf had primarily been viewed as a sport for only the upper classes. But in the 1920s, it was soon appealing to the middle class as well. Bobby Jones was the dominant golfer in the 1920s and is regarded as one of the best golfers of all time. Bobby Jones was the dominant golfer in the 1920s and is regarded as one of the best golfers of all time.
Mr. Jones, I have trouble, you see, in the middle. What do you do?
Louise, if you don't mind, we came here to see Mr. Jones practice.
Oh, pardon me. Well, go ahead.
But Louise, dear, you're supposed to be quiet.
Oh, well, I won't say a word. Just go ahead.
Bobby Jones was one of the most influential figures in the sport. The innovations made by Bobby have been copied by others in other tournaments around the world. He won 13 championships in his career.
Well, now, Bobby, before we were interrupted, Jimmy and I were just wondering how you felt about practice. You know, most fellows just like to play all the time, and, well, we wondered if you believe in a whole lot of practice.
Yes, I do. And the right kind of practice is just as interesting as playing. With rising incomes and spare time, people in the 1920s wanted leisurely pastimes. From movies to sports and everything in between, people spent time and money watching and playing. The Roaring Twenties paved way for many legendary athletes and their careers. The legendary athletes made sports what they are and forever will be. From home runs to hole-in-ones, sports took center stage in the 1920s and are still played and watched to this day.
Better look out, little brown eyes, if you're wise. They sparkle, they bubble, they're gonna get you in a whole lot of trouble. Oh, baby, them